Hi guys, so a couple of weeks ago my favorite YouTuber, Johnny Millennium, the Happy Console Gamer, put out a video talking about his 9th anniversary on YouTube. Almost a decade, that's crazy to think of. So I decided in honor of that I would make a response video to the first video I ever saw of his, about 5 years ago, skipping school and gaming. That was the first time I discovered his channel, and I've watched it ever since. It's probably the only channel where I've watched the majority of his videos more than once, especially the Christmas tradition of watching that every single year, his Christmas special. So, skipping school and gaming, I actually do have some memories of that. Hopefully, let's see, my mom doesn't always watch my channel, maybe hope she won't see this one, but yeah, admitting I've skipped school to game a couple times. The first one that I remember was Tomb Raider 3. And I remember this vividly because my friend Patrick at the time tried to sell me out. I got Tomb Raider 3 over the weekend, right after it came out, just a few days after it came out, and come Monday morning, I really wanted to play this game. I forget where we were, we did something. I think we went camping or we did something over the weekend, and I wasn't able to touch it. It was still in shrink wrap Monday morning. And my friend Patrick knew, I had talked to him the night before, that I was planning on playing sick and skipping and playing Tomb Raider 3. And the problem was I could never really skip school. I always had to try and fake sick somehow, very convincingly, because my mom worked in the school district. Especially when it came to high school, she worked in that high school. I actually had her as a teacher for one class. So it was a lot more, it was very difficult. I couldn't really just skip school, even though the house we were in was just a couple blocks from the high school and a few more blocks to the middle school. I could never skip. I had to pretend to be sick. So every single morning, my friend Patrick would come across during middle school and high school, and he'd pass my house on the way to school, so he'd wait for me, and I'd come out and we'd walk to school together. Every single morning for 6 years, middle school and high school, and we'd even walk to school together a little bit in elementary school. So he knew. He showed up at my house, though, as normal, rang the doorbell. I didn't come down, and my dad opened the door, and he asked where I was. He said, "Hey, is Stefan ready for school?" And my dad told him that he was sick, whatever. And he goes, "Oh, he's not sick. He wants to play Tomb Raider all day." And I couldn't believe he did that, and I don't remember why. There had to have been a reason. I probably did something to him the week prior. I probably did a prank or something on him. That's probably why, but I don't remember. But I remember he tried to rat me out, and my dad was mad, and he almost tried to send me to school, and then I was able to convince him, no, I was really sick. And I stayed home that day, and I beat Tomb Raider 3 that day during the school day. So that was one I remember. The other one was, and I don't have my original copy anymore, I need to get a black label again someday, but Final Fantasy IX was one where I wanted to play that so badly. To this day, it's still my favorite game in the Final Fantasy series. And for the longest time, I'd only played it once and beat it and just never wanted to taint that memory because it was so just engrossing. I got so involved. I actually ate in the morning. This is crazy and embarrassing to admit. I ate half a tube of toothpaste to make myself feel feverish and throw up, and I was like actually sick for about an hour after that. It was horrible. But I did that to convince my mom to let me stay home, and it was a Friday, I remember, after I got it, because I played it all day long, and then I stayed up all night long with the sound off playing it Friday night. Through Saturday, before the end of the weekend, I had beaten Final Fantasy IX. I put over 50 hours in about 3 days. It was crazy, and that was I just put it in and never stopped. And that was the first time, actually the only time I think I've ever overheated a console by leaving it on for too long. I let that PS1 on for over 2.5 days, and by the end, every time it would go to a loading screen, you move from one environment to the next, it would take a couple of minutes for the next thing to load. It just would start to lag, and it would just lay there for a couple of minutes just loading, and then eventually things would start again. It was terrible, but I ended up beating it in just a couple of days, and that was one experience that I never cared to repeat. I never tried that again, eating half a tube of toothpaste. It was disgusting. Another one was, not really skipping school, but when Fear Effect 2 came out, it was the stupidest thing. I was so into it that I stayed up all night on a school night to play it, but I had to do it with the sound off, trying to get away with doing this. And I barely got anywhere that entire evening because I was so paranoid. I was so freaked out that any noise, I would turn off the TV and put the controller down and go back and pretend I was asleep. And majority of the time it was nothing. Our house, that at the time where I was living in my mom's house, over 100 years old, so there's creaks and groans when any little thing happens, the house settling, that type of thing. And most of the time it was the cat. you know, every once in a while it would be my mom or someone going to the bathroom, but most of the time it was nothing. But I'd freak out, turn it off quickly, and I'd go back almost like I was like a vampire, just going to sleep, pretending to sleep. And by the time I turned the TV back on, if you played this game before, you know parts of it can be really, really difficult. I'd be dead most of the time. I would forget to pause it or something, and it would just, I'd turn the TV back on and I was dead. So I barely got anywhere over an entire night and had no sleep and was worthless the next day in school. And the last instance that I had was something similar. It wasn't actually gaming, but I had found at a Goodwill. I used to go thrift store shopping all the time with my mom on weekends and over the summer and go to yard sales. I found a bunch of bootleg VHS of 80s Hong Kong movies that were recorded off of VCDs. I don't think they were recorded off Laserdisc, because a lot of times I got a couple like that. They're bootlegs where they would actually record and you'd see the like switching from side A to side B pop up in the corner. It was funny, but these I think were a VCD, and especially with the quality, like they're beat up VHS transfers of VCDs, so terrible quality. But it had a bunch of like cool 80s Hong Kong movies I'd not seen before. Things like The Inspector Wears Skirts. I had Moon, Star, and Sun, a bunch of Maggie Cheung movies, just a whole bunch of cool things like that. I think there was some of the first 3 of the Lucky Stars movies were on there, and I played sick and just kind of watched those all day long, and it was great. I mean, looking at it was terrible quality, and obviously the English on the bottom, because even though at the time till I think 97, a lot of the VCD and Laserdisc releases of Hong Kong movies were required by law to have English subtitles, but there was no quality control. So it was an interesting experience, but I was so addicted to like 80s Hong Kong at the time. That was kind of a cool thing. But yeah, I know the last one wasn't gaming, but it was a related experience. But those were the couple of times, and leave a response video if you have ever had an experience with skipping school to game or playing hooky, playing sick, whatever, calling off sick. If you've ever done it for work, that's one thing I've never done. Have you ever done it for work when a new game comes out? But here is a response video 5 years later to the Happy Console Gamer video, the first one I ever saw, skipping school and gaming.